Okay, now what I want to show you is this section of the koala, and this section is quite dark because it's in shadow. So the different techniques that you can use is you can either put a wash over this whole area and then start working some of the detail in. I'm just taking out some of the pencil marks because it's very difficult to actually rub out pencil once you put watercolor over it, and it's virtually impossible to do that. So what I wanted to do is I go and I just want to define this little guy here. He actually has his little paw coming around like this and clinging onto his mama bear over here. So I'm just putting in just a guideline over here, just so that I know more or less where this little baby's arm is. And I'm going to take masking fluid. Okay, this is masking fluid. Okay, looks a bit rubbish, but I'm using Zelen. Now Zelen is a South African make that's major in South Africa, but you can use any masking fluid. That's to block out your whites, and I suggest please use a very old brush because it tends to clog up everything, and you know, it will mess up your brushes. So don't use a really good brush to put masking fluid on. I use a smaller brush because I like the detail, so I actually dip it in. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline this area because I don't really want to paint over this area, and I'm going to make it a little bit spiky because there's a lot of hair here. You know, koalas got a lot of hair, so this section I'm making very spiky. Also here by the tummy, I'm going to make that quite spiky, right? And I'm going to block out this leg as well. Just want to block it out. Just as a guide, oops, see, sometimes you put too much masking fluid on. I'm not worried about that because as it dries, I can just pull it off. So it doesn't have to stay there. Some people like the dots. That depends on the style that you're using. So then I don't put this in my water. I don't suggest you do that. Sometimes I let it dry and just pull off the masking fluid. Else you must put it in water, separate water. Don't put it in the water, same water that you're busy painting with, because it actually just, it's horrible. It's like a glue. Okay, so I'll wait for that to dry. This other little guy here, I'm just going to define this because as I've been drawing, this line has disappeared. So I come back in here and I just add these lines in here. Okay, with a leg that's down here. It's very fluffy, so you can't really see this little leg here. Okay, and this is basically where the baby is. Okay, and Mama Bear's legs come down like this. Okay, this one's clinging to the mommy's leg, so okay, putting that in there. But the thing with this is, now I'll move this out the way. Have a look at all these lines. So very carefully I will go back in and take some of these lines out because you don't want it interfering with your painting. Okay, and make sure all the rubbings are off. I'm waiting for that to dry. Okay, so now I'm going to start painting again. Now this area is very, very dark. So in order to work this area, I'm going to put a wash down. Okay, we'll make sure the wash, I'm just going to wet the paper. Let's wet this paper. Okay, now you must remember the leg here comes up a bit. Okay, so now I don't want that water over there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this area. Okay, right, with my paper towel. Now I'm going to take this, I think let's take the ultramarine and the alizarin crimson, okay? If you want to, you can actually just do a test patch on the side. Okay, that's a little bit too red. If you want a bit more blue, okay, add water in there, do a little test patch. Okay, that's a little bit more purple, add more blue in. So you can do test patches. You can actually use paper to do test patches. Okay, we're going to add this in here now. And do it very lightly. Okay, just adding water in as I go down. So a lot of pigment on the top and then just adding water. Okay, now if it's not dark enough, you can just take some more of your pigment and just dab it in like this. Okay, add more blue at the top there. Just let it bleed down like this. Okay, and then you wait for it to dry. It's very important for that to dry. And then what we'll do is let it dry just slightly, starting to dry already. And now I can actually start working some of that gray in. Okay, so this is really, really dark. So I'll just work a little bit on this side here. Add a few dots in. Now I'm going to start with my grays. Okay. I'm going to drop some grey paint in here because it is quite dark. But I'm not putting a wash. I'm putting little stippling marks here because the koala has got hair here. So I want it to still look like these clumps of hair. See? So now I'm doing the wet in wet process here. And sometimes you use the wet in wet, it's almost like a blurry effect. So there's not a lot of detail here. The detail is here in the front. I don't want to really do too much detail here because that's not where the focal point is. The focal point is actually on the koala's face there. Okay. Just, there's a lot of water here. So I'm just going to dab some of it out. Okay. I'm now going to add some more. I'm now going to use my squiggly method. Using the squiggly method here. So this is a different, it's a technique of wet in wet that I was showing. Okay. And that's dry. So there's an edge there. See the edge? Now, if I didn't want an edge, I would add water to that and soften it like this here. Now, I do want that edge over there. And I want to create the leg. You know, the idea that the leg is here. Okay? There we go. And then those clumps of hair again. And this may look really purple too, but we're going to go over it with another wash when it's dry. You can decide if we're going to make it a darker blue or whether we're actually going to make it a darker grey. See, already the paper is dry over here. You can see that it's not bleeding as much. Okay, so it's starting to create a crisp edge over here. Okay. If you find that it's drying and it's too dry, you can just put some more water on it in that area. Okay. Some people like to use sponges. I don't really like to use a sponge. That's just too much water. So just dab some water in there. Clean water. Just put some more water in that area. Okay. and I'll start adding the pigment on it. It is going to be darker here, so I don't mind going a bit too dark here. It's not a problem as long as you're not too dark over here. Okay, so I'm going to make this area darker. See, it has dried, so we can work in here a bit. It's still bleeding a little bit because it's still slightly wet, you'll see, which is great. So you can use this effect to build up your color. Okay. Still bleeding and blending into each other, so that's okay, it's fine. This is what you want. You want this clumpy looking kind of fur. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry and then we'll come back and do a wash over that. So I'm now going to work dry. Okay, now that everything is dry, I want to go in and work the bottom end of this koala bear. So I hope this position will help you to see better the way that I'm busy painting this. So the next thing is to start working this area. I'm going to use a slight wash, as I did before at the top. This is just basically some water. Just going to add water in here. Go over this area with my flat brush. Just add the water in because this area still is in a bit of shadow. Okay. So we're going to use the wet in wet technique. I'm going to use my alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. Do a little bit of a test patch here. Add some water. Okay, and then start adding this color in. Okay. And spreading it around. So that's what happens when I do a wash. Okay, it becomes very blurry, very diluted, and I'm going to also now take that grey that I have worked on. I'm going to add some of the grey in. This, I'm putting most of the pigment on the side here because that's where the shadow is. Okay. And then I'm working it in to the rest of the painting, just pulling it across. Okay, add some more water in so there's not too much pigment on there, and then put it in at the bottom, bring it round, put it on the edge. So just keep on adding pigment in. Just keep on adding it in, pulling it across. Okay, and now I can actually work upwards with this as well. And I'm using a grey over that purple area. Very light washed out color. And now you can do a few washes. You see, by doing the wash over the whole area, it actually unifies the area. So I just want that to dry a little bit. You can put as many washes as you like actually over the paint, over the area. You know, as many as you think you need to darken the area. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And I'm now going to use my small brush, my naught brush, and I'm going to dip it into my greys. I'm not using black at this stage, and I'm going to use my stippling technique. Okay, it's still wet, so I'm using the stippling technique in a wet in wet process, and as you can see, it bleeds, it blends in the little dots. Okay, especially around here where it is dark, I'm darkening this area over here and just dropping in colors into the wet areas. And then you can come and do that squiggly method that I showed you to make the clumps of hair. Okay. As it dries, you will see you'll have more defined lines. Okay. And it's a process of actually working in the dark colors. It's a layering process, remember. So even though I've come back here a number of times to work the paint in, I will still come back here after everything is dried and work some more paint in. Okay, you can see it's drying. So I'm just using my squiggly method over here. Okay. To give the idea of clumps. Now, this area seems a lot lighter than the top, so I'm going to come back here. See the hard edge? So it's not soft. If I had come back here to soften this, I would just put clear water and smooth out this edge. But as you can see, if it's dry paper with wet paper, it will create quite a hard edge. See this edge here? And I'm going to add paint in just on this side of the wet paint, in the wet area. This is part of the wet in wet process. Okay, I'm dabbing the paint in. I don't want a straight line here because koala bears are fluffy. So I'm trying to keep that effect of the fluffiness of the koala bear. So you see it's quite dark down here. Now the rest of the koala bear, which you can't see, is actually quite light because the light is hitting from that side and there's a dark shadow side this side. It's good to have the contrast of dark and shadow, light and dark areas, because that gives the idea, the impression that there is light, sunlight streaming through the trees or coming through the trees, and I'll show you how we're going to do that near the end. Okay, so I'm just using my stippling techniques and just using very small light dabbing. The little baby is underneath here, so there will be a bit of a shadow from the baby. Okay, a bit of a shadow created there, which will also fall across the leg here. Okay, we go on, still a little bit wet here, but if you find that the paper is drying too quickly, you can always just use a spray, a bottle of water spray. Some people use that as well, so that you just keep the paper wet and moist and dry on the outside. See, I don't like spray bottles because then the spray will go and wet this area as well, and I don't want that area wet because I don't want this paint to actually bleed into the background. So I control the wet areas just with a paintbrush, not using a spray bottle. But it depends on you. If you like that technique, then you can use that as well. Okay, so the moment, just put in a slight wash here, just to unify it. And I'll come back and work this area. It's just still a bit too wet to work those areas. Okay,